Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast, ripping up everything, off that, back to back is not.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast, guys. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We are back, rocking and rolling with another one of our rookie breakdowns. If you haven't been watching our show, please go back, check out the quarterbacks, check out the tight ends. They were a lot of fun, especially the tight ends. Tight ends are more interesting than the quarterbacks this year. But what's more interesting is this 2025 running back class, and we're going to break down in a two-part series, starting with today, a bunch of rookie running backs that you need to know for your upcoming NFL draft if you watch your team, or for when fantasy comes around shortly afterwards in rookie draft. So, of course, Coach Tyler's on the show today. Coach Tyler, what's going on, brother?
What's up, guys? Yeah, it's a deep class. Excited to talk about it and excited to have Justin here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a guest on today's show, guys. We haven't had a guest in a while on the show. Justin, my friend, how are you? Welcome into the Coaches.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I just can't seem to escape Miami Dolphin hosts on my shows. Like everywhere I go, there's always somebody saying the Miami Dolphins are this, the Miami Dolphins are that. Dan Marino's gone, guys. Let's get over it.
Well, you don't have to worry about me saying that too much right now. I don't really have much to say as a Dolphins fan, just that. That's why I do fantasy football, because the Dolphins aren't that good in real life. So that's why I've been dedicated.
I feel like that's how Browns fans feel too.
Probably. Especially with the owner today was like, yeah, we fumbled on the whole Deshaun Watson thing. So I was like, oh, that's not great to hear. He's got like another year still, right? He's like, I think he's got another year after this. Like
year two.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's fully guaranteed. He's getting that money regardless of if they cut him or not.
It's biggest heist in NFL history, that's for sure. So, well, we're not going to talk about Deshaun Watson on today's show, even though we already have. So, today, guys, we have a little bit of news to get through, and then we're going to get right into the rookie breakdowns. And again, if you've been watching, very similar outcome. We're going to talk about each team to some extent, each player to some extent here. Both Justin and Tyler will kind of give their more in-depth analysis to it, and then we'll get out of here in a nice hour, hopefully. So, let's get things rocking and rolling here. If I can bring my screen back up here, my lovely slideshow here. So we'll start off with fantasy news here. Starting off here with Russell Wilson. Obviously, we talked about Jameis Winston, I think, on last week's show, Tyler, and we were like, oh, Jameis Winston, this should be fun. Malik Neighbors, to the moon. And then a few hours, might have been even a few hours later, maybe a couple days later, I don't remember. But Russell Wilson decides to join the New York Giants as supposedly their starting quarterback. We'll wait and see how that turns out. But Justin, I'll let you start. How do you feel about Russ, and do you still like Malik Neighbors to the moon?
I like him because he's pretty much the only option there until Travis Hunter gets his number called or his name called this draft season. But yeah, I was kind of really stoked on Jameis Winston to the moon. I've had a few shares of Jameis that I just held on, waiting for that second chance to come around. And now Russell Wilson, as he's done for my entire 49ers fanhood, is pretty much just crapping on my day. So what can I say? I'm still I think Russell is pretty much cooked, but somebody thinks he's not. So somebody wants to give him the utensils to keep on cooking, even though he's borderline a fry cook right now and not even a good one at that.
Well, $21 million will get anyone to join any team for the hell of it. So, Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Russell Wilson to New York?
Yeah, like we talked about, Jameis Winston had a secure job until literally anything else happened. And, of course, something else happened and he's out of that job. I fully believe that there is going to be some competition going into camp. Russell Wilson didn't have the most outstanding season, and that's why he was a free agent from the Pittsburgh Steelers of all teams, and that's why he's going to the New York Giants. And so I think there is going to be some competition. I would have to put the money on Russell Wilson coming out of camp as the starter. How much that means for his stock in fantasy, probably not a ton. He's got some weapons there. We talked, obviously Malik Neighbors is there. We talked a couple weeks ago about Darius Slayton being re-signed. So he has receivers, but I don't know what that stock is going to look like. I don't have him really any higher, even, possibly lower than I had him as he ended the Steelers with the Steelers, or as he ended the season with the Steelers. There we go. But yeah, I think he wins the starting job. I don't think he's overly relevant in fantasy just because that offense is kind of still a jumbled mess right now. But we'll see what the rest of the offseason and the draft holds for the Giants, and maybe that sentiment changes going into August.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really interesting. Hopefully they can add another weapon to that offense, because really they really need another star to kind of pair with Malik Neighbors, to give Russell Wilson some kind of fantasy relevance each and every single week. I mean, he started off nice with the Pittsburgh Steelers and then kind of just fell down as the season kind of went on. Really wasn't a great starting worthy quarterback, even in a Superflex league play. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes to Russ. I mean, hopefully Travis Hunter does get added to that team there. It'd be really great for Russ's value, give him at least some value for 2025. But those in Dynasty, if you've had him and you're like, damn, he might not be signing this year, you've gotten yourself a little gift at least to give you something or a good reason to sell high on him right now. So, but going over to the wide receiver, Stefon Diggs heading to the New England Patriots, which to me, this was a bit of a surprise. But again, it made sense for their need, unfortunately. But he signed a 3-year deal worth up to $65 million. I believe a lot of that is in year one, so they could probably get out of him after the first year. But, Justin, how do you feel about Diggs in New England? Does he have enough fantasy value? Does this help Drake May take another step? We've seen Diggs do that for other quarterbacks over his career so far. So,
yeah, I mean, it seems like Diggs is really working hard. I mean, I think he had a press conference when he got signed that said he was pretty much ahead of schedule. I mean, for what that's worth, it's not coming from a doctor, it's coming from him. So what is he going to say? What wouldn't he say to kind of encourage everybody? But, I kind of look at it like, the Patriots are a team that kind of has the workings of a staff that would do their due diligence. So hopefully, he really is on schedule. And the whole grand scheme of it, for me, I look at like if they do get like somebody like a Ted McMillan, that's tremendous for them, because Ted McMillan, for me, he needs somebody to teach him how to really separate consistently. And who better do that than Stefon Diggs? This dude is a true separator. So, yeah, I think that mentor spot, it's more valuable to your future picks than it is for your actual value at him right now. Right now, I traded him for like a 3rd-round pick, and I'm happy as can be for that.
Love it. Coach Tyler, how about you? How do you feel about Diggs in his situation there in New England? Can he be, fantasy relevant for us?
I think he can be fantasy relevant. I think Justin just took the words right out of my mouth with Ted McMillan right there. That's been a very highly mocked spot, and obviously a lot of fantasy owners want to see, a young quarterback like Drake May get a 6'4" weapon at receiver. But even, the tutelage that Stefon Diggs brings, being with, multiple quarterbacks in Minnesota, being in Buffalo with Josh Allen, and then coming from Houston, even with just one season fully on a team, but really kind of half a season playing with CJ Stroud. Like, he has learned little things from each quarterback that he's been under, as well as the prowess that he has as a receiver on his own. So, like Justin said, anyone coming into that receiver position, they're going to learn a lot, and they're going to benefit a lot from having Stefon Diggs on the field. If he is, ahead of schedule, if he's fully healthy, hopefully going into the season, if not fully healthy going in to, week 4 or 5. But I think Diggs brings a lot to helping Drake May mature, not only from his play, but also just from what he's learned from the other quarterbacks that he's played with. So he has that, on his own, he's an elite athlete, elite separator, like Justin said. He can definitely hold his own fantasy value, but I think what he's going to do more than anything is be there, health or not, to boost Drake May up and help him to take those next steps coming into his sophomore season.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're all hoping, is that, we saw it with Josh Allen back in the day. We saw CJ Stroud kind of be decent in the beginning of the year with Diggs on the field. So we're hoping that can help May get the next level. As far as Stefon Diggs, I mean, he looked good in that first half with the Houston Texans there. He was looking really good, especially in PPR leagues. But obviously a guy who's in his 30s coming off a pretty major injury, we have to only hope that he can be something, at least, maybe not his old self, but at least fantasy relevant. But again, just like the Russell Wilson, those in Dynasty, who I've had him in a few leagues, were kind of nervous that he wasn't going to find a team for 2025. He's at least on the team for this year. And, if it's successful, I'm sure they'll probably find a way to keep him past this year to give him another year or two for relevance. So we'll have to wait and see. But enough NFL talk. Let's talk some rookies, guys. And we will be talking about a bunch of different rookies tonight. We're not going through the top 10, so don't think this is the top 10, 12 rookies. It's definitely not. There's a lot of hitters that are going to be on our next week's show, but probably the biggest hitter to a lot of people, at least, our very first running back off the top here, Alshon Jeffery, running back out of Boise State. Jeffery last season, just amazing college year, 374 carries, over 2,000 rushing yards, even though it says receiving yards, 19 touchdowns, 23 receptions, another 138 yards in the air, and 1 receiving touchdown. He'll be 21 years old by the time the NFL season starts here. Didn't test on the combine, which makes a lot of sense for the top back. But Jeffery, if you haven't heard of Alshon Jeffery, you must be living under a rock, because this guy went off in college this past season here. A guy who's got the combination of size and power, big playability, fantastic vision, even though I wrote good vision, but fantastic vision. And there's really not a lot of negatives you could probably say on him. I'm sure the guys will get a little bit more detail and some other things, but outside of, work level, he had a lot of carries this past season and in college, level of competition, maybe can improve on his receiving skills. But again, those aren't really major concerns that an elite running back has, because they're just what they are. So, Justin, I'll let you start here first. What can you say about Alshon Jeffery?
Well, you could say a ton of positive things about him. So I'm going to be Mr. Negative here, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start off with his size is lacking. He's about 5'8". I think he's 211, which, a lot of people will be happy with their running backs over 200 pounds. I personally like a running back that's within that 215 to 225 range. If you're a little bit heavier and you can still carry it, I love it even more. Hint, Damian Martinez foreshadowing. But I'm just gonna say, with Ashton Jeffery, it's so clear that he's the number one guy here. He's got everything you need. You just got to be worried about the one, like you said, the workload. I'm not so worried about the level of competition, because like all these guys have a certain competition level, and like their lines match up with the competition, right? So you're essentially playing chess on the same playing field when you're in these conferences. So, I'm not so worried about line versus line. I'm worried about, is he going to be able to take the hits? Is he going to be able to break the tackles? Is he going to be able to read what his line is giving him? And he's shown all that at the next level. But like I said, really, it's kind of like one of those worrisome things where, when a guy's 5'8", 211, it's not like Bijan Robinson coming out, or it's not like Saquon Barkley coming out, where these guys were just massive players while being like elite athletes. This guy has kind of got like a size problem to him. So that could be something that could possibly lead to future injuries that, as we know, at the running back position, can lead to shortened careers. So, like I said, you can say everything positive about this guy, and you'll be absolutely right. I just want to stick to the few little negatives.
Did I say Alshon Jeffery before?
I think
You said it, and then I feel like was I the one saying it originally? I might have. I'm terrible at speaking. I don't know why I'm even on doing podcasts, but Ashton Jeffery. If I wasn't saying it right before, if you're listening, I apologize, but I feel like I was saying it wrong for the whole entire time. But I love that negative take on that, Justin, because for a guy like Jeffery, there's a lot of great things to say, but digging into the little things like that that people need to look at is very important. So I love the way you went to the negative approach on that. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Jeffery?
Yeah, I do like Jeffery. I do think he's number one. I don't think it's by as big of a stretch as a lot of people would believe or even proclaim in that. But, that's becoming the kind of word around town in Dynasty, is that, everyone thought Ashton Jeffery, and I for sure think he is the 101 in your 1 QB in your super flex drafts, this and that. But it's not like he's 101 and everyone else is 107 that you're going to have to suffer with. I think that, he does have the talent, and obviously a lot does come from his past couple seasons, right? You know, he does have the giant season, number 2 in Heisman, should have been number 1. With his 2,600 rushing yards, I fully believe that he should have been the Heisman winner this year. And, you know, we did see before he was the big name back that he was this year, you know, we saw a very high reception total from him last season, right? We saw 43 receptions for 569 and 5 touchdowns. He was averaging over 13 yards a reception. So really, if you start to combine all the years, he, you know, did have a lot of the tools that you want as a back coming in, right? He holds a lot of that true 3 down back workload skill set. But like Justin said, he is, you know, he's on, I won't say the shorter side, I'll say the stouter side, right? Because he's still 211 pounds. Like he's going to barrel over you if he needs to. He'll do it very easily. But he does have, you know, very good contact balance as he does that. He is able to get up to speed fairly quickly. But there are times that he isn't necessarily as patient as he should be. Obviously, part of that comes with playing behind the offensive line at Boise State. I don't think that any of those are highly acclaimed guards or tackles, but you know, he just sort of rushed into plays having to try and be Superman, and being Superman did take Boise State to the college football playoff. But
True.
you know, the workload is kind of crazy when you look at it, right? He had 374 carries this year, 220 last year, and 156 his freshman year. So that alone is 750 touches when you don't account for, you know, the extra 80 receptions plus any pass blocking stats that he had. So there is going to be, you know, a lot of wear and tear on this guy. I'm not saying that diminishes him in any way. I'm just saying that as he comes into the draft, he's not, you know, fresh off of just a single season breakout. He's been used very widely and very heavily at Boise State. It's just he became a household name this season because he was chasing Barry Sanders. But I love Ashton Jeanty. I think he is the number 1. I don't think that's necessarily a debatable argument. There are a lot of positives. There are a few negatives, but I don't think the negatives push him down in any way from being the, you know, clear-cut 101 in all of your drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not overly concerned with the workload at all. I mean, the only thing is that if you kind of compare it to like Ken Walker, very similar size, maybe Ken Walker's an inch taller. He's dealt with injuries on his own. He had a lot of work coming into the NFL there, but Jeanty is an absolute beast. So you should be really happy if you do have the 101 in a lot of rookie drafts this year, no matter where he goes, because he's going to be elite for your fantasy team. So. All right, next up on the board here, Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. This past season, 240 carries, 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, another 22 grabs in the air, 188 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. He'll be 22 years old by the start of the NFL season. Pretty average to the NFL Combine. I think he only ran the 40, which was a 4.58, which solid. You know, wish it was a little faster, but solid overall. But that's kind of his, you know, style of play there. You know, for him, doesn't have a heavy workload on his college resume, kind of the opposite of Jeanty. Kind of explosive off the grab of the ball. And for me, the vision was something that I really liked watching film on him. I thought he had excellent vision coming out. Negative side, really didn't like his running style. Kind of runs more up, which can lead to bad situations with the ball, especially at the NFL level. Pass pro was something that stuck out. Did not like what I was able to see from his blocking ability. Something he'll need to work on if he really wants to be a true 3-down back, which I think he can still be. In his route tree, a lot of shorter routes, not really a full route tree for that running back that you would assume to be a, you know, elite running back at the NFL level. So it's kind of how I thought about him a little bit. I do like him a lot here. I think I have him currently, just based on these guys currently, I have him at number 2. It's kind of like a mix. Number 2 is kind of like a back and forth for me at the moment, but he's sitting at my number 2 just based on the guys we'll talk about today. But Justin, how do you feel about Johnson?
I'm happy that you said something about this because I've been preaching this for a while. I don't really like Caleb Johnson. I think that he's got some of the talent and the tools, but you were talking about his running style being more standing. I'm like, yeah, he kind of looks like he's Derrick Henry, but he doesn't bring anywhere near the force that Derrick Henry does. I know it's because he's 6'1" and he's abnormally sized, like height-wise for a running back. But, when you really break it down, he's a zone scheme perfected runner. Like, he is literally meant for like a 49ers, Saints with Clint Kubiak, Miami Dolphins, all these ones that really like to shift linemen to one area and open up a hole. That's where he's best at. Now, he can get himself, as they say, skinny and work in between the tackles. But when you look at the games that Iowa was playing, like their offensive line looked like a Hall of Fame offensive line behind this guy. And it wasn't just because they were like uncut gems there. It was because these guys were legitimately like just giving him what he could take, and he was taking it straight to the house. Like, he's got that home run speed, 100%. But he's just one of those guys that I just don't see it transitioning well to the next level unless he's in the right system. For me, he's running back number 5. I'm happily taking both the Ohio State guys ahead of him, Hampton. And I'm just, for me, I go with the whole idea that if he finds the right system, he'll probably be good. If not, he's going to be working a lot because I just don't see him as an NFL ready guy right now.
Fair. I like that. I like that breakdown there. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Johnson? Where do you stand with him?
Yeah, I like Johnson. I have him as my 4. So I have him, middle of the pack right there as we talk about a few of the top end guys. But he's a polarizing player because he doesn't do anything as we think that he should, right? So he's 6'1", 224. That's what he weighed in at the combine. That's how he measured out. And so you look at that size and, you do think of a Derrick Henry. You think like, oh, this is a bigger back. He's just going to run through you. And he is not very aggressive when it comes to contact. Like, he is not seeking out people to run over and to throw them across the field on a stiff arm. He's looking for how to cut past them, how to, try and be elusive and get around them. But at the same time, his elusiveness, because of his size, isn't, anything outstanding. I think that he does have the tools to put it together at the next level. I do think, kind of like Justin said, he's going to need to be in the right scheme for how he plays. But, if he does go to a San Francisco, we know that running backs there succeed very well, even though they always get injured. So it's a win-loss game with that. But, he has the size, and we see, pretty good production from him this past year, averaged just under 6.5 yards a carry, 21 touchdowns. Obviously, he's playing in the Big Ten, so a lot more rushing offenses, but also you don't put up those numbers. You don't average 128 rushing yards a game by being a bad running back. It doesn't matter what your level of competition is. And so I think that he has the skills. I think there is going to need to be some, refinement. He's going to need to figure out how to use his size best for the game that he plays, which is a contact sport. But he still does have that, explosiveness, that little quick foot elusiveness in his bag that he can pull out when someone thinks that he's about to run over them. But if I know that you're going to try and get around me, I'm just going to come straight at you because I know that you're not going to try and, tuck your head and barrel down over me. Right. So I have him as my 4 right now. I like him as a prospect. I don't think you lose out on anything with him. If anything, he has, the size to really attract teams and say, hey, if this guy can do it at least in a power 4 level, he can do it in, the baseline level that we're going to ask of him as, possibly a 2, maybe even a 1, depending on the team that drafts him. But I like him at 4. I don't think that's diminishing him at all. There's just 3 really good guys that I have above him that I can't place him over unless he did things a little bit better.
That's fair. Absolutely. Yeah. John, I liked Johnson. I like Johnson. Maybe, again, there's some things he needs to work on, but we'll get to him more later. Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State. This past season, 194 carries, just over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 22 receptions, another 161 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns in the air. Another young guy here, 21 by the start of the NFL season. Really great NFL combine. Junkins, 4.4840, 38.5 vertical jump, 132 broad jump. Really good combine out of him. Again, I liked him a lot too. For him and Johnson are kind of close to neck. I mean, I like Junkins' play strength, patience as a runner, quickness in that short area screen there. Again, doesn't have a billion carries on him because he was splitting time with another running back we'll talk about next week, which is really great. I think there's a lot of potential for him. A few things, again, they're not major things, but didn't see a lot of explosive plays out of him. I think that's still something that he can still eventually get there at the NFL level. The hands, whether it was blocking or receiving, there were just times I just didn't care for a lot. And for me, he's a one-cut runner. I don't think he's got another move in him once he makes his cut. And that's kind of just how I feel about him. I think he's a really good running back. And I know the guys are going to break him down a little bit more. So, Justin, I'll let you start, my friend.
Yeah, so I like Junkins a lot. I think that he's going to fit in as a perfect goal line complementary back at the next level. He does everything in that, like you said, that short area quickness. He's like off the line, really, he does it really well. And he's always, one of the things I love about his game is that he's always pressing forward for an extra yard or two. Like those are the guys that really do make it. And, obviously the pass protection is, call what it is. It's not good. I mean, I think he does more lunging than actually like setting, which is never a good trait to have. But, he's got a lot of time to work on it. And, he was somebody who made his money in the national title game and showed that he did have finisher speed. Although, you could say maybe that was just a fluke because you look at a tape and you're just like, it doesn't really show up too much. But I kind of comp him a little bit to Ezekiel Elliott. They wore the same uniform and, they both just did that, that short distance, get 5 yards and just keep on going type of mentality where you're like, you'll probably make it in the league for a good, 5 to 10 years just based off of that mentality. If he can get up his pass blocking to where Ezekiel Elliott was too, he'll be fine for 10 years. He'll make it just fine. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and get him on any fantasy teams until, I see for sure that he's in a position where he can actually win a job. Like if he gets drafted to a Chargers, for instance, or he gets drafted to a Bills. I think a Bills would be an excellent one. Take a little bit off of Josh Allen, have a true elite goal line back, somebody who can really carry it in. But, outside of that, I like him as my 4. He's just not the type of guy I would fully invest in unless the situation was absolutely right.
All right. I like it. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about the Ohio State running back?
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins, shout out to all my Devy guys. I know there's a lot of shares of him going around. And, a lot of that came from his freshman year at Ole Miss, right? You look back at that, 1,500 yards on the ground, another 132 through the air. But he just kind of blew onto the scene as a freshman in the SEC. And it's just been diminishing numbers since then. Numbers kind of came down. He kind of came back to earth his second year at Ole Miss and then transferred to Ohio State. Obviously, it was in, just about a 50-50 split. It was really kind of like a 52-48 with Travion Henderson, which we'll talk about. Not right now, but, Judkins, I have him as my 5 right now. If you would have asked me after his freshman year, he would have been in the 1 in the class no matter what. And that's why I shout out all my Devy guys, because you probably drafted him with the 101 in your Devy draft whenever you had the opportunity to. But, nothing necessarily jumped off the page to me. I haven't seen as much maturity for him as much as I would have liked to seen, having that outstanding freshman year where he set the world on fire. Again, has, good size. He comes in at 6 foot 221, how he measured out at the combine, 4.4, 840. So, on top of the game speed that we saw in the national championship. He doesn't have terrible speed, and he has a lot of good traits that he's able to play with. But I think that he was behind Travion Henderson for a reason this season. I think that he does possess everything to become a 3-down back. I don't think that he comes into week 1 of this next season as a 3-down back, but I think that he has the, like you said, the patience and the quickness to go through and play, but he is a one-cut runner, and a lot of players are really able to tell with running backs like that at the next level exactly what's about to happen. And so, that stops the big gains from happening. And we see the explosive runs even fall behind this past season. But I like Judkins. I have him at the 5 right now. Again, that's not a, attack on Judkins and saying he's the 5th best running back. It's saying in this loaded class, he is the 5th best running back. I think a good situation could possibly boost him up over a couple guys ahead of him. But there's a lot of situations that need running backs and a lot of great running backs that are going to go fight for those draft picks. And so I have Judkins at 5 right now. That's not a bad 5. That's a really good 5. But there's just, like I said, there's 4 guys that I have ahead of him.
Absolutely. All right. I like it. Run over to the next running back here. Corey Kiner, running back out of Cincinnati this past season. Kiner had 204 carries, 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns, 16 receptions, another 111 receiving yards. He's a little bit older, 23 by the start of the NFL season. Another average NFL combine. I think he also only ran the 440 at a 4.58. I didn't actually couldn't find a lot of film on him. From what I was able to watch, I go back on old YouTube TV channel that I was able to find Cincinnati running back play. Kind of really wasn't someone I liked watching a lot of film on. Good contact balance, was able to kind of bounce off defenders at times. College production was solid, but for me, I didn't really see a lot of burst. Not very twitchy, behind the line, getting through the holes, ball security. I know he had issues with fumbles at times when I was able to read up on, but kind of wasn't somebody I found a lot of great things about. I have him kind of low on my boards. I don't know how you guys feel about him, just because I didn't find a lot of film on him personally. But Justin, how do you feel about the Cincinnati running back?
So I actually really like Corey Kiner. I think that he's kind of got that refined feel to him because he's been in college for a long time. Playing at Cincinnati, you're kind of either the star or the team's going to suck. So I think the team's pretty much sucked for a long time. So I don't know. But, when I look at his tape, it's weird. I see a lot of what Kyron Williams was. And that was just a guy who's just good at the fundamentals. He's excellent with contact balance, like you said. He's got, in my opinion, some of the best vision in the entire draft for running backs. He just lets things happen. He's got the patience and he's got the vision to see what's going to happen on the field. I really like the guys, like I said, with Judkins that just continue to push forward. And he's one of those guys that no matter what he's doing, if he's barreling into the defensive tackle, he's going to try and get that extra yard or 2. Those are kind of some of the traits that I've seen in Kyron Williams that has kept him as a viable guy for a long time. Obviously, it would take a miracle for him to land somewhere where, they would find him as useful as Kyron Williams, as Sean McVay has with Kyron Williams. But, I do see some little parallels there, especially with his stature and his really weak 40 time. Obviously not the most explosive guy. Like you said, he's not really known for being somebody who can juke you out of your shoes. He's better off actually going inside than he is going outside. But, those are sometimes the guys that, when they get the chance, they make it on the team and, they do something more with it. So, yeah, I like Corey Kiner. I think he's probably around my running back 7 right now.
I like it. Coach Tyler.
Yeah, I like Kiner. Started his career at LSU. A lot of people don't know that. So started at LSU and played in 11 games for him. So, he was able to get on the field in some capacity at the SEC level, and then transferred out to Cincinnati. Obviously, Cincinnati got a better part of the realignment with conferences, ended up in the Big 12. So he got back into the Power 4 ball. But Kiner is just consistent. And I think that's what coaches are going to like the most about him is he is just consistent, right? He, like y'all have both said, both of the positives and with Justin, like he just bounces off tacklers. I see a lot of Kyron Williams in that too. Like he's just a hard guy to bring down, at least for the first tackler. Once you get a couple guys on him, you can usually wrangle him down. But I do think really like Justin said, at the next level, that's going to benefit him in the highest fashion, because when he does get the opportunity, he's going to be able to go out and get you 4 or 5 yards. He's going to grind out those yards, and that's what coaches want. They want guys that they can throw out there and say, hey, I'm going to give you the ball, go get us a first down here. Hey, it's 2nd and short, 3rd and short, we need something, go get it done. And he's going to be a guy that I think can do that. I think that puts him as the RB2 on a team. I don't necessarily think that he becomes the starter anywhere on his own, by his own accord, but that doesn't mean that he can't have value like we've seen with guys like Jamal Williams and Raheem Mostert the last couple seasons, where they're grinders. They won't get a ton of carries, but any given season they can go off for 20 touchdowns because the coach is like, hey, we need 3 yards here to get in the end zone. I trust you. Go get it. So I could 100% see that being a career path for Kiner. I don't think that he's a starter. Obviously, there's a lot of maturity and a lot of things that could happen as he goes through and as teams, draft him and train him and believe in him. But as of right now, I don't see the skill set being a starter, and so that pushes him down my running back ranks a good bit.
Yeah, I need to find more film on him because I was not able to find much. I got to go back and look. Didn't see it on the Dynasty Nerd site, Coach Tyler.
Nah.
So I got to go. I got to yell at them or something because I need to see some more film on him because I have him low, so I didn't find a lot of film. But, yeah, let's move on, guys. R.J. Harvey out of Central Florida. This past season, 232 carries, 1,500 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, 20 receptions, another 267 receiving yards, and 3 more touchdowns in the air. Another little bit of an older running back, will be 24 by the start of the NFL season. Really solid NFL combine, 4.4 40, 127 broad jump. Not a good shuttle time, 4.34. I like Harvey a lot. I know he's a little older, but solid college production. Another one of those running backs that can bounce off defenders really well. Can be shifty at times, able to kind of make defenders miss. So like there's a nice combination of being able to, beat down defenders or make them miss completely and find extra yardage that way. Again, he's a really solid 2-down back. That's kind of where I see him as a guy who can be a 1st and 2nd down back really good at the NFL level while having, a pass catching back kind of complement him a little bit. Again, there wasn't even though he ran a nice 40, I didn't see a lot of burst on film on watching him. His pass protection definitely needs work, which kind of why I think he's more of a 2-down back. And again, I don't want to hurt somebody with age, but 24th coming into the NFL is not a great start. I mean, Tyrone Tracy, players like that that are already in a higher age, their dynasty values kind of sink, even though they've coming off a good rookie season. So for me, age is definitely a factor when thinking about this Harvey. But Justin, how do you feel about Harvey as a running back?
Yeah, I just want to echo your points. You don't want to be caught with these guys in Dynasty because they're already aged out by the time they get there. And Harvey is one of the guys he's had a full workload for his career because he's UCF's only real weapon. When I looked over at his tape, I was just like, this reminds me so much of Memphis Kenneth Gainwell. Like this guy was just every freaking where on the tape. You can tell he's just a baller. You can tell you want to get the ball in this guy's hands. You just got to figure out how you're going to do it, right? Like you said, he's a 2-down back. He's absolutely atrocious at pass protection. So, you can't have him on there in those critical third downs unless you're going to throw him in the slot. And I think that could be something with this guy. One of my notes was this guy could easily work underneath as a slot receiver. Now, he doesn't have the greatest route tree, but he just has the ability to get open. Like, it's just all over his tape. When they go to him, he is just wide the frick open. So I'm thinking to myself, if you want to get really crafty with these gadget positions, which the whole NFL does, right? Everybody's into the whole gadget role now. This is the perfect guy to go for. He's 24. He's pretty much a polished, finished product. You teach him how to run a couple crisper routes, and you kind of just let him line up as running back, catch him screens. Maybe you make him run a couple slants. Maybe you throw him a deep ball every now and then. And, you just kind of test out the waters, because I don't think this guy is going to make it as a running back. He seems like he's the type of guy to get cut in his second year if he's just going to strictly be a running back.
Maybe we'll have a Antonio Gibson kind of change to his career, maybe. Oh,
right.
The opposite way, though. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Harvey?
Yeah, Harvey honestly just reminds me a whole lot of Corey Kiner. A lot of the same hit points. Just consistent. Like Justin said, he was UCF's really only weapon. So he got the ball a lot, and in his time, his freshman season, he had 3 attempts, so we'll throw that out the window. In his time at UCF from, the last 3 years, averaged 6.7, 6.3, and 6.8 yards an attempt. So he is able to, put his head down and get the yards. Honestly, like y'all said, right, the burst doesn't show up on film. The 4.4 at the combine kind of surprised me. I felt like that was a little bit faster than I thought that he would go. But, same thing as Corey Kiner. I just don't see a ton of leeway for him to make, a starting role in the league. I do think he does kind of limit himself with that first and second down back ability. Just, bad in pass pro, nothing outstanding in the receiving game. A lot of dump offs. He has those few plays where he does, sit wide open when he actually runs a route. But a lot of his receiving production just came from quick little dump offs, and he, was only able to add a couple yards to that. Nothing big play about him. But, same sentiment as Kiner. I think that a team's really going to like that he's consistent, and he's going to go run some people over and bounce off of tacklers and go get the needed yards. And so I put him in that same, he'll be an RB2 somewhere, and he'll just kind of grind out the yards that he needs to get. I have him about in that same range as Kiner. I love that you put them back to back, because it's just 2 Big 12 backs that do the exact same
Not
thing.
on purpose.
Yeah. Just 2 Big 12 backs to do the exact same thing. He is a little bit on that smaller side, though. 5'8", 205 at the combine, 29-inch arms, 9-inch hands. All the, everything is below what, the league average would want to be, right? Especially for a guy that we're looking for in fantasy. And 5'8", 205 is bigger when you're playing some lower level Big 12 teams, not necessarily as big whenever you're playing some NFL D tackles and linebackers. And so I think he falls into that RB2 role on a team. Again, he could grind his way up. He could possibly work his way up through injury on a depth chart, but I don't foresee a, luxurious fantasy career for him for, fantasy players, especially in Dynasty.
Definitely not. All right. Over to the next one. Cam Scattaboo, running back out of Arizona State. This past season, 293 carries, 1,700 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns, 45 receptions, 600 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. He'll be 23, a slight bit older, but, not as old as 24. Decent NFL combine, 39.5 vertical, 123 broad jump. He didn't run the 40 there. I think he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken, at the NFL combine. So I don't think he ran at the NFL combine because of that reason. But Scattaboo was interesting. He looked just very bulky when watching him on film when I first looked at him, because, again, I didn't watch any film on him until I started watching it like this past 2 weeks. And I'm like, he looks so funny on the field. But He's fun to watch. Footwork's excellent. A tackle breaker. Guy can just burst into the second level real quickly. Again, the receiving work was something I really liked. Obviously, he's one of the highest receiving backs in this class here. Can break off tackles real easy. The contact balance is elite. Works really hard to get to that next level there. And again, he's someone who can do it all. I mean, you wouldn't think of him by looking at him as a 3-down back, but I think he has potential to be a 3-down back for sure. Things I really didn't like about while he's great at breaking tackles and stuff, he does bring on a lot of contact for himself, where he wish he could kind of just make a defender miss instead of having to just try to run them over or just say, hey, I'm going to bring it with me. That's something I have some concerns about. Ball security, I believe he had 3 or 4 fumbles this past season here. And then the home run speed, he can get that second level, but he's not going to, he's not breaking off for a 60-yard run too often. He's going to get caught from behind. If he finds an opening, he's going to get caught, unfortunately, at times. So for those little things there, but he's really an interesting running back to watch. And if you can go watch film on him, he's someone I really enjoyed watching film on. Justin, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, Cam Scatterbo is the guy that you love on college, on game day, because he's everything that exemplifies a team leader, somebody who's willing to jump right into the fire and handle things himself. I love that about him. And I think he's going to make his way onto a team and find his way onto a team with those traits for a long time. You know what team he'll never find his way onto? My fantasy team. You know why? Because to be honest with you, he has some serious workload. And like you said, he'd rather take and absorb contact than makes them guys miss, which is kind of scary for the fact that you realize more injuries will come from that. And more injuries means you get slower and slower. And he's already pretty freaking slow. I think, what does he run, like a 4.74 or some shit like that? Like, he is miserably slow. But yeah, I mean, please check that, because I've been known to spout out facts that aren't exactly correct. But yeah, I mean, I really liked the kid. I liked watching him through the CFB. But in all honesty, we got to get real about this guy. He's probably going to end up a special teams ace at some point. And if he does end up on the field, it'll be goal line situations, because that's where he makes his money. He is just a bruiser. I think he can work a little bit more as a pass protector. And for how big he is and how, like you said, bulky he is, he's actually not even a really good pass protector. So in my mind right now, there's no way in hell somebody gets him right now and says 3-down back. I want to go with Cam Scatterbo. I think we need to really get over this Cam Scatterbo thing and really look at it from what it is. He's kind of just a slower guy who, in my opinion, will probably end up being a special teamer by year 3, and a damn good one at that, because he's going to bring the energy.
Yeah, it looks like he ran at his pro day between a 4.53 and a 4.57, they said.
I heard pro days are really reliable.
Yeah. But he didn't run at the NFL Combine, so I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I definitely agree with all that. Coach Tyler, how do you feel?
Yeah,
hold on, Peter, you're breaking my heart, Justin. Oh, Peter.
Yeah, Scatterbo he's one of those guys that really falls into the bucket of he's an outstanding college football player. He's a guy that you want to watch, right? Very quietly, first team All-American. He was 5th in the Heisman voting this year. He's not just a guy that had a great CFB game and just the entire world fell in love with him, right? Obviously, as a perennial UT hater, I enjoyed watching him do what he did to those nasty Longhorns. But I think everything y'all said is perfect, right? He is a heat-seeking missile, and it's really fun to watch, but it's really not fun to have to worry about for your fantasy team, because he is going to wear himself down. And there are games where, we've talked about he's going to want to play Superman, and especially for that Arizona State team, he kind of had to, especially in all those different facets. And so he does come in with a lot of tread on the tires, over 450 carries, not counting his just about 70 receptions in college in 2 years. And so, he's getting a lot of work, and obviously he turned that into a lot of great production, right? A hair under 2,500 rushing yards and a hair under 900 receiving yards. For 2 years of work, that's outstanding. But he just doesn't do anything except for be that get you hyped up guy extremely well. He does have a 3-down workload in terms of he can make plays after the catch. And again, he's not afraid to run someone over. And so, you always love to see that, and you want a guy that has that ability. You just don't want him to do it on every single play, every opportunity he gets. You want to see a little bit of elusiveness thrown in there. But I'm not sure that the 40 time, I'm not sure that the speed, at least in that measurement, is going to be what slows him down in terms of advancing in his NFL career. I think that teams are going to see him as this fundamental guy, and he has all the weapons. There's just a couple things that he definitely needs to, get out of the I was just playing at Arizona State mindset of. There's a lot of things that don't translate from Arizona State to the NFL, and that's why we don't see a ton of Arizona State guys out there. Shout out Kenny Dillingham doing a great job in his time there. But, just the way that Scatabo played, it's not going to hold up in the NFL, right? And he is, a pretty decently sized player, right? 5'9.5", 219 at the combine. So, when he looks bulky running, it's because he's a bulky human. Kid is like all muscle. But I just don't think that he is a starter anywhere. I don't necessarily think that he falls down to that special team level unless it's just really just at the beginning of his career starting out. But I think he has enough in him to, be a guy that has some production in the league. I don't know what level that is. I don't know if that's ever at a starter level, but it's somewhere. And so I like him. I like him more than the last couple Big 12 backs we've talked about. I like how you lined them up just one after the other. Comp for him, Lance Zierlein has his comp as Jalen Warren, and I don't hate that.
Okay. Yeah, Peter said, what comp do you guys have for him at the NFL level? A fancy Jarrett Patterson?
Yeah. He's a slower Jalen Warren to me. I like how Zierlein put that, his comparison for him as Jalen Warren. He's a slower Jalen Warren for me, just very compact guy. Has receiving ability, but probably won't be a starter by any means. We've seen Warren, he's had all the explosive plays, but still outside of, I guess, right now before a snap has been played in this next season, still hasn't secured a starter role on his own. So we'll see what Pittsburgh does. Maybe they bring in Scatabo and they just have two of them.
That'd be funny. Oh, God. All right, moving on here, guys. Next on the board here is Donovan Edwards, running back out of Michigan State. This past season, 120 carries, 589 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, another 18 grabs in the air, 83 receiving yards, and a touchdown. 22 by the start of the NFL season. Solid NFL combine, 4.40. 38-inch, 0.5-inch vertical jump. Edwards was definitely not someone I liked a lot. He's definitely one of the lower guys on my board here. I mean, he's got the nice size and he's got a good frame. Improved on his blocking this past season. Does try to finish runs hard when he's getting tackled. Tries to fight for those extra yards. But obviously, outside his 2022 season where he had 900 yards, college production really wasn't amazing. Vision, lack of creative runs, just kind of runs what is given to him, not really much more. Again, he's just kind of an average running back that I don't expect to probably see much value at the NFL level. He's going to be a third running back on an NFL team. It's probably for a couple of years, and that's probably about it. How do you guys feel on him, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I do like him a little bit more than some of the guys we've been talking about just because his blocking. But then again, this is not a really good class for blocking running backs. So, he stands out at that level. But when I was watching his tape, he's kind of just a jack of all trades and a master of none. Like he can do just about everything, but he just doesn't do it like at that wow level. Like he's vanilla. If he was a flavor of ice cream, he's vanilla. Like he doesn't have the great college, he doesn't have the great vision or the great patience in my eye. But you know what? He doesn't have terrible patience either. I mean, he does let stuff open up for him. His production, yeah. I mean, they had to have 2 running backs back there because they wouldn't entrust it just to him. And he isn't creative. He isn't the guy who's getting these bounce out runs and stuff like that. He doesn't have the moves, the juke moves to really put on a show. So, I think you nailed it right on the head. He'll probably end up being a 3rd running back on a lot of NFL teams and probably a practice squatter maybe this year. Maybe he makes it onto a team just based off of his blocking skills alone. But, nobody really wants a blocker at their running back position in fantasy.
No, they don't. Coach Tyler?
Yeah, fun Donovan Edwards stat before I get into this. Donovan Edwards, every year of his college career, has completed a pass. Multi-talented weapon out there. Teams might take that into account. But, yeah.
Oh, first rounder right now. Hall of Famer. Future Hall of Famer. Let's get it going.
Has a 100% completion percentage. He is 4 for 4 in his career. But, yeah, Edwards – he's really a guy that I thought would step up with Blake Corum leaving. Obviously, Blake Corum leaving also coincided with Jim Harbaugh leaving, and that coincided with Michigan just being the worst ranked team in the nation. And so, there is a little bit of Donovan Edwards' season this year that I kind of push off to the side and say, oh, the entire Michigan team was terrible. We can't, take what they were when they won the national championship and say, oh, Donovan Edwards just couldn't produce with that. But the other part of it is he was not the leading, he didn't lead the team in carries. He couldn't beat out Khalil Mullings, who Mullings is a good running back in his own right. But Edwards just didn't jump off the page. And so, he's a guy that I thought highly of. Over the past couple seasons, he's a guy that I thought once Blake Corum is gone, this is going to be one of the best backs in the college landscape. And he just wasn't. He has good size, good, contact ability, 5'11", 205. So he's not on the smaller side at all. But just what I've seen, I really like how y'all put it, right? 3rd string, possibly practice squad guy. Not to say that, Harbaugh doesn't take a shot on him in the later rounds, get his guy back, and then recreate some of that magic from that 991-yard rushing season. But at the same time, there's not too much ability that I see that is going to warrant me spending a fantasy pick on him or even just a taxi squad pick.
Absolutely. All right, let's keep things moving here. Next up on the board here, Damian Martinez, running back out of Miami of the U. This past season, 159 carries, just over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, another 17 grabs in the air, 204 receiving yards. Will be 20 years old by the start of the NFL season. If I'm not mistaken, he is one of the younger running backs in this class. Decent combine, 4'5", 140, 35-inch vertical, 124-inch broad jump. What can you say about Martinez? I mean, he's a big back. Truly was fun watching him. Very powerful runner. Quickness in very tight spaces for a back who's big like that, which was kind of impressive to watch on film. Solid NFL college productions, just about 1,000 yards in each of his 3 seasons almost at the college level here. Again, really interesting running back for sure. Again, some negatives on him. I mean, he's not a home run speed kind of running back. I don't know if you want to say that's a negative for him, but he's not gonna break away a lot of runs. The blocking could use some improvement with his hand placements. Footworks can be a little sloppy at times, but Martinez is a guy that was really interesting and I think has a chance to really thrive at the NFL level here. So he's got the skills to kind of compete against the best, and he's young still. So like his negatives some of it can be fixed at the NFL if he lands in the right situation, which I do like about him. He's not a 24-year-old running back with these issues. He's a 20-year-old running back with these issues, so they can be fixed. But Justin, I know you mentioned Martinez before, so it seems like you really like him. So tell us about Martinez.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that he's 20 years old and he's still got that ability to, really soak in the knowledge of the NFL experience, because this guy is going to be asked. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's like a Ricky Pearsall. You're going to be surprised that he gets drafted a lot earlier than some of these guys do, because a lot of NFL coaches want a running back that's younger, that doesn't have the huge workload, that can be molded a little bit, and at the same time, with the scheme being zone running for a lot of offenses, what do you think zone running is going to do for a guy who can just get to the space and just break tacklers? Like, this guy, I don't want to say it, but like, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Damian Pierce, like a Michael Turner. He just runs with a certain violence at that weight that you're like, God damn. If you just get that guy on the right team and you get them in the right scheme, he's going to absolutely tear up the league for at least a couple seasons. So, I'm really in on Damian Martinez. Obviously, he has pass blocking issues. I mean, like I said, this whole class pretty much has pass blocking issues. He doesn't have the finisher speed, but it's very rare that you find guys this big that do. That's why somebody like Derrick Henry has been coveted his entire career, is because he has finishing speed at an immense size. And yes, he is kind of a little bit raw with like his one cut moves or any of his real footwork. I think that he's not somebody, he's legitimately somebody that you want to get in space and you want to just say bulldoze over him, but he's got the speed and short quickness areas that he can actually make, an offense really go off of him. And if he doesn't run into issues that Damian Pierce did early with fumbling, with inconsistency, I think he can find his home, possibly with like somebody like the Dolphins. Like, think about it. Like, you lose Raheem Mostert, you get Damian Martinez. Think about the 1-2 punch Devin Achane and Damian Martinez could be. Plus, he stays in Miami.
Those are my Jalen Wright trails. But Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Martinez?
I like Martinez. I really like how Justin said he's a raw player. And you look at him being one of the younger backs in the class. He still has 3 years of, starting time, 2 years at Oregon State. And then obviously the more focused on year this year with Miami. But over those 3 years, he's never averaged under 6 yards a carry. 2 Pac-12 years and an ACC year. So we're not talking about, the most daunting run defenses in the world, but still has not averaged under 6 yards a carry. And that's over 160 carries, or just 161, 194, and 159. So just about 160 plus carries a season, right? Not a ton in the receiving game, not a ton in the pass blocking game. So not going to be out there on third down a lot. But for the youth that he has and the raw ability that he has, I think that's what's going to attract teams the most, is we can form this guy into whatever we want him to be, because he's 20 years old and a raw athlete that's able to do this, right? Multiple seasons over 1,000 yards. And his, freshman year was 982. So, you give him a couple more carries, according to the averages, you give him 2 more carries, 3 more carries, and he's over 1,000 yards for all 3 seasons. So I like Damian Martinez. I think that he definitely is one of those guys that is going to get drafted higher than a lot of people believe, but it's because teams look at, that raw ability and say, hey, this is exactly what we want in the draft. As a young guy, we're not going to have to spend a first, maybe even second round pick on him. But we get a young guy who has proven production at multiple programs, and power will go to Power 5 because the Pac-12 was alive when he was there. Multiple Power 5 programs. And we get him with, a late day 2, early day 3 pick. Sign me up for that all day. And so I think, the draft capital is going to decide a lot where I would draft him in rookie drafts. We'll talk about that, following the actual NFL draft. But I think that the raw ability is going to be something that teams latch onto, and that's going to attract teams, and that's going to lead to him getting better draft capital than a lot of us would expect at this moment.
All right. Moving on here. Rashard Smith, running back at SMU. This past season, 235 carries, 1,300 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns, 39 receptions, 327 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. Smith will be 22 years old by the start of the NFL season. Again, really solid, up and down NFL combine. I mean, he had a really solid 40, 4.39, 117 broad jump. The vertical was a little slower, 32.5. I mean, what can you say about Smith? I mean, definitely has that kind of like third down specialist vibe to him. Has that, home run threat ability. If he gets it, if he gets the hole and has the opening, could take it to the house on any given play. Got the quickness in that short area. Again, he was a former wide receiver, so he's got really solid pass catching vibes, which I kind of see him as like a third down specialist for an NFL team. Kind of like a I'm trying to think of a good one at the time. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I don't know. Can't think of one off the top of my head. But he's got some flashing plays to his talent. But again, some of the more important things to be a true NFL running back, again, the size, the blocking ability really kind of blocks more like a wide receiver than a running back that would. I feel like there's going to be an adjustment to the NFL level for him, especially with the level of talent he had to play with against this past season here. I don't know if he makes it as a true, he probably will never make it as a true 3-down running back or anything like that, but could he still be a pass catching specialist at third down? Absolutely. Has special teams value. Maybe he takes that Curtis Samuel approach and kind of comes in as a running back that ends up switching back to wide receiver. I'll have to wait and see, but he's definitely a flashy guy. But how do you guys feel about him, Justin?
Another true gadget guy. I love him a lot more than I love Harvey. Harvey to me is the knockoff of what Rashard Smith is. I do think that he'll definitely find a place in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if he went somewhere like a Kansas City, because they love to get those gadget guys. I mean, look what they did with Xavier Worthy. They literally played him everywhere you could play him just to get him the ball. This seems like the same type of player. You kind of just want to get him the ball and get him space and just let him go. He didn't wow me as a running back, like when you think of the fundamentals of a running back, but he wows you with the quickness and the speed, and you go, wow, this guy has literally got one cut and he's gone type speed. Your eyes just open up, and I'm sure a lot of GMs think the exact same way. Like, all we got to do is get this guy a little bit of space and he's gone. Who wouldn't want that, right? So, I think that he could have a spot even in fantasy too, because you think about it, with kicking and kick returning in Scott Fishbowl, say he gets drafted by a poor team like Carolina. Blackshear was amazing last year for that type of setup. He could be just as good. Like, let's really think about it. He could end up being a kick returner because he had that in college to start off his career. So there is going to be value for him. The problem is going to be, where does he get picked? Who is he playing for? And, that's where we'll make our assessment on where we can draft him. I imagine he'll probably be in a lot of people's drafts, a 4th rounder. Unless he goes somewhere like Kansas City, then he'll probably bump up to like pick 110 in the first round. You're just going, wait a minute, what happened here?
I hope so. And if someone takes him, that'd be great. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Smith?
Yeah, I kind of like how Justin put it, but also I don't necessarily think he has standalone value unless it is in a lot of kick returning point leagues. He just doesn't. He has the elusiveness, and that's what made him such a good kick returner at Miami. But, I mean, we go back and look at his stats for a wide receiver, 14 receptions, 33, and 22. Bless you. I think there was a sneeze in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's my wife.
14, 33, and 22. So he wasn't having outstanding receiving seasons before he made the switch to running back, right? He somehow had more receptions as a running back than he did as a receiver any season. And so he's just a polarizing player. Obviously, 1,300 yards on the ground is nothing to, look away from. There is production in that, but coming to the next level, if he's playing running back at 5'10", 194 is what he came into the combine as, he's not going to make it too far, right? I think third down guy at the most, with just the receiving ability. He has the ability to be a gadget guy, but I really think his ceiling, in my mind, is a third down, like consistent third down running back that gets you kick return points in kick return leagues, because that's where I think that he'll shine the most. I don't think he stays at running back. I think he does have to be kind of that gadget guy. It's like how people view or Taysom Hill is, marked as a tight end, but he's a tight end, quarterback, and receiver and fullback and just everything that the Saints want. Rashard Smith might be listed as a running back, but I think he's going to have to be a running back, a receiver, or a kick returner, or a punt returner, this, that, and the third to get you any fantasy value.
Anything but running back. All right, I got two more to go, guys. One of my favorite running backs in the class here, Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee. 258 carries this past season, almost 1,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, another 20 receptions for another 143 yards receiving. He'll be also 20 years old by the start of the NFL season, if I got that right. I feel like that's wrong, but hold on. I feel like that's wrong. I don't know why. No, that's right. Okay, that is right. Average NFL combine, 35-inch vertical, 124-inch broad jump. Sampson's someone I really liked watching film on. He was actually the first guy I watched any film on from among these running backs here. I love the burst coming off the line of scrimmage there. Really can get through the holes, reads it very well, what's given to him and what's not given to him. Elite one-cut runner. The one cut he does make is phenomenal to watch, and he can get up the field really quickly. Again, one of the guys who I like in this class in terms of vision. For me, he was one of my top two guys here. I really liked. Did a lot of things very good. Nothing that I saw that was like major concern that had a huge negative on my part. But he did a lot of good things, and there's some things, especially, again, vision for me for a running back, I really love to see it in my running backs there. Did that very well this past season here. A few negatives, you could say, ball security. I definitely had issues with the ball. The size is obviously not ideal at 5'8", but, we've seen running backs of that size be able to produce. The top running back in the class is a shorter guy. And then blocking, I think there could be improvement with blocking if he really wants to make it to the next level. But he's someone who I have as probably will end up being my 7th, 6th running back off the board by the time I finish all my running back rankings, because I really do like him a lot. And he's someone that, if he lands in the right situation, I do plan on targeting very often in my rookie draft. So, Justin, how do you feel about Sampson?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's kind of electric with the ball. I haven't really thought of him as a pass catcher, but obviously 20 receptions, you did something, right? Yeah, I mean, it kind of worries me. A lot of these guys are, on the smaller side, and I'm not even talking about just height now. I'm just talking about, I think Sampson weighed in 205.
Yeah.
That kind of worries me a little bit. Kind of reminds me of a Jalen Wright, kind of like a smaller guy that I don't know. A lot of these guys kind of get pushed off to being somebody's seconds, and then we end up talking about them later on, and we're just like, oh man, whatever happened to Michael Carter when he was with the Jets, or whatever happened to, who am I thinking of? Not
That's what happened.
But you get the picture.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Eric Gray when Saquon Barkley left?
Was Eric Gray?
Yeah, Evan Hall. He just kind of. I can't help but be reminded of these guys when I see him, because he doesn't really, like you said, stand out in any way. He does have some good acceleration and like you said, the one cut speed is there, But like I also see him running in the piles and not going forward. I see him getting used as a goal line back. And then, you factor in that he had 258 carries and you go, okay, so that's SEC carries. So he's going in there against big boy defensive tackles and getting roughed up. So, for me, I look at it and I go, maybe I don't think I really want any part of Dylan Sampson because like I said, it weirdly gives me the feels of like a Michael Carter, Eric Gray, Tank Bigsby type of scenario. I mean, I feel like the greatest scenario for him would be like a Jerome Ford, where he goes into a backfield with an older guy who's about to lose his wheels and he gets a position after that.
I like that. I like that comparison. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Sampson?
Yeah, Sampson's one of the most polarizing running backs in this draft to me. Not saying that he's overly very highly rated for me, but he's just polarizing in terms of, he really has had one season of starter production, and he turned that into being the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. So that's nothing to, turn your head away at. Almost 1,500 yards, 22 touchdowns on the ground. Not a lot of guys are doing that in the SEC. And so I look at him and I look at the box scores. I look at the stats and I say, man, this guy's got it going. And then I look at him and his size and I say, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. 5'8", I'm seeing 5'8", 200 as his combine measurements. He may have been a couple pounds heavier on his pro day, may have had a better meal before he started that. But, he just doesn't hold the size to consistently be what he was at Tennessee. And I think that's what's going to hurt him at the next level. He's, I don't want to say undersized for a running back, but at the NFL level, 5'8", 200 isn't really all that big, right? And so, we have from Dane Brugler, he said that Sampson's 40 at his pro day was a 4.42. Obviously didn't run at the combine, but 4.42, he's got obviously the speed, that initial burst you talked about, that elite one-cut runner. He's got the speed to break away. He does have, ball security and size are a problem, but he does have fairly decent contact balance. He's able to bounce off of tacklers and get through tacklers as well as he is able to, show some elusiveness and get around them. But I also don't see him, I really love the example that Justin put out, a Jerome Ford where he ends up in a backfield where he's, somewhat taking the reins from an older back and he's progressing over the next 2-3 years to that position. And so I think in a couple years, he might be a guy that I would be willing to pay up for if he really, comes into that role and shows out. But I also am somewhat scared off of him. Kind of like Justin said, this weird feeling of I'm not attracted to the idea of drafting Dylan Sampson in Dynasty. I see where he could possibly be a good pick, especially if he ends up in a great landing spot. But me personally, he's one of those guys that I would be fully okay paying a higher price in a couple years than I would be paying what his draft day price would be, just so I can see it.
All right. Well, you guys are going to be real sorry when he's the best running back in the class. I'm just kidding. All right. One last one here, guys. Tajay Brooks, running back out of Texas Tech, because Coach Tyler said if we didn't do this, he would leave the show. This past season, Brooks, 286 carries, 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 28 receptions for 199 yards, another touchdown. He'll be 23 by the start of the NFL season. A really good great combine. I think he was tied for me. He was tied for the best combine in the class with I think someone else. But 4.5 340, 120 broad jump, 4.06 shuttle time. I'm gonna let you guys talk about him because I did not finish my breakdown on Brooks yet. So Justin, I'll let you talk about Brooks.
Yeah, so when I saw Brooks on tape, he kind of looked – there were moments when he looked really slow, and then there were moments when he actually, he would break a run off, and you're like, oh, okay. You don't get the idea that he has the finisher speed. He doesn't have that top-end speed. He kind of at time looks like a plotter to me. That might just be the size. Maybe that just is what kind of happens with those bigger guys. But yeah, I mean, for me, he doesn't really possess the elusiveness. He can get outside, but it seems like he bumps to the outside in like a kind of like a slower fashion. So where I'm like, if you were to try and bump to the outside at the NFL level, a linebacker would eat your lunch and put you right into the ground for maybe a 2-yard loss. Whereas maybe you're getting away with it because you're at Texas Tech, no offense, Coach Tyler, and you're playing these kind of not so great teams. But it's just he was never somebody who was truly on my radar. And, I'll say this. Right now with that picture, for some reason, I think to myself, who wears 28 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because he looks like he's wearing a Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey right now. And he's just killing it in like the early 2000s. But maybe that's just how as old school as this guy's running style really is, because he feels like the type of guy who is just going to freaking hit the hole. And if he doesn't hit it for 5 yards, he's going to be off the field. I don't know. I didn't come in too prepared for Tajay Brooks. I'm not going to lie.
That's why we have Coach Tyler here to give us a 20-minute breakdown on Brooks. Go ahead, Tyler.
With no bias whatsoever.
No bias whatsoever. I'll tell you what you're thinking of when you look at Brooks and see the 28. It's not actually 28 for the Buccaneers. It's 22 because you're thinking of Doug Martin when you watch him. Very muscle hamster-y vibe. But that's really what he was these last couple years at Tech. Obviously, he did the most outlandish thing in the college football landscape and waited his turn to be a starter at school that he started at, right? He waited 3 years to really be the full-fledged starter and then had 290 and 286 carries for that. So he got his workload, he got his pay. And turn that into 1,500 yards in each season and at least 10 touchdowns on the ground in each season. Taj Brooks by no means is, the RB1 for me. Obviously, I have some homer bias, so I'm going to try and get him in all the leagues that I can that I have an open taxi spot in just because I love the guy. But like Coach Steve said, right, he had a great combine. You look at the agility scores. 3-cone drill, he was a 6'9". In the 20-yard shuttle, he was a 4.06. For a guy that's 5'9", 215, he really played about 220, 225-ish. That's actually his playing weight. That's a fairly good agility score, especially for a guy that, you're not seeing necessarily a ton of outstanding agile plays on the field. One of my biggest gripes on him would be that he's a great patient runner, but he's too patient sometimes. And that's to, his downfall. Obviously, Texas Tech, not the greatest offensive line in the world. And so Taj Brooks would wait for things to develop and he'd keep waiting and keep waiting and keep waiting. And then he'd get tackled for 2 yards behind the line. But the next play, they'd run inside zone and he'd take it for 7 yards and just make up for everything that was lost there. But I like Brooks as, I keep talking lots of RB2s coming out of the Big 12. I like him as an RB2. He is a guy that is able to go through contact. But like you see in his times at the combine, like you see a little bit in his film work, he's got the agility to get around guys. He can make a player miss. And he is, he is an athlete. He has the athletic ability. He has, 5'9", 215. If he gets back up to playing weight at 225, I think a lot of that was just preparing for all the running and agility and everything, lost a couple pounds. But he's a workhorse. I think that he could be a solid RB2 in the league and, again, could work his way into an RB1 role. I don't think he's going to, blow anyone away with speed or be, this outstanding bruising runner like a Derrick Henry or someone that's just you're terrified of them coming straight downfield at you. But I think he has a role to play in the NFL. And if you look at a lot of people's sleepers at the running back position going into this draft, there's a good few of them that are going to say Taj Brooks. So don't say that we didn't tell you when he turns into something in the league. Wreck him.
Yeah, and we'll find out in a few short weeks. So we'll see where he lands at in the right situation for him. So, all right, well, we're gonna wrap this thing up, guys. We talked a lot of running backs tonight, guys. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this analysis breakdown and got an idea at least on some of these running backs here. Justin, man, it was great having you on. Fantastic guest. Great analysis on a lot of these running backs. If there's anything you want to say out loud now, I will give you the floor, my friend.
Yeah, man. First off, I want to say thank you, coaches, for letting me on here and letting me spew my nonsense to the world. I always love a good draft show because you always find out everybody's little guys and everything like that. And now I know Coach Tyler's a Texas Tech guy because I've never heard of Taj Brooks before, but he explained it to where I want to go draft him. But anyways, if you guys want to catch me, I will be on TSS Fantasy. We do shows right after the draft, and we might do a show for the off season, but who knows? We're not getting paid, so we make our own schedule.
There you go. I love it. So go check that out, guys. When they have some shows posted. So, Coach Tyler, anything you want to say before we get going?
Yeah, guys, go check out Dicey Nerds. Apparently, we got to get at the editors for missing a little bit of RJ Harvey film. But there's so much over there that is offered. We have the Dynasty GM. We're getting closer, and draft picks are more valuable than they've ever been. So you can go look at the draft calculator, the trade calculator over there. You can go look at the trades, browse trades throughout all the various leagues that are tied to Dynasty Nerds. So you can go see about price points of what things are. But also you can go check out the Dynasty Film Room. Again, there's some film apparently that is not there that should probably be there. But for the most part, every rookie that you would want to look at, every guy that you would want to prep for, and even some 26s and 27s. If you're really already punting the 2025 season and planning on the tank, we've got a lot of film over there. The editors do a great job getting that all cut up, all 22s. And so go check out Dynasty Nerds, and thank you guys for listening.
I will not be checking that out until January 2026. But we'll get there, guys. But yeah, we do appreciate you guys all for tuning in tonight, whether it's live on our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Coaches. Obviously, I always highly recommend it because we always put a good show together, guys. But if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we appreciate you guys as well. Always, if you can, just leave a 5-star review. Like I said, like Justin said, we don't get paid to do this. So we do this out of the goodness of our hearts to give you guys great fantasy analysis as much as we can to help you guys, win the off season so you can win actual championships and make some money playing fantasy. So we appreciate you guys for joining in. We'll be back next Monday to finish up the rest of the running backs part 2. So if you enjoyed these running backs, there's a lot more to talk about here. So we thank you guys all for listening. Tune in until next time, everyone, and have a great one.